The mounted warrior in D&D is cool, but it generally has problems.
It did have problems until Tasha's causing everything. There is some new content in there that makes for killer D&D combos. Mounted for battle. Let's do this, Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Steve. Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds.
Now let's get mounted up and ride forth into this video.
All right, man. What are some reasons for us who want to be mounted?
All right, so, there is always that whole thing of, wanting the boon companion. It exists in so many different, genres and whatnot, but it also, works really well for mobility and speed.
Yeah, and you're automatically going to have that ally in the fight if you are mounted on the creature. Hopefully you like each other. That's why you work together, for sure. So I want to say, like, the biggest problem I feel with mounted combat and having mounts in D&D, I feel like you got to be under this height in order to ride the ride, right? It's like being the reverse of a kid in 5e D&D, where instead of having to be this tall to get on the ride, you actually have to be under that for it to really work well.
Yeah, the problem is, things that are large, your typical mounts, for a medium character aren't going to fit in a lot of places. It's going to create, innumerable problems through the course of typical adventuring life.
Yeah, I mean, there's some ways around that we'll get to later. But, also, real quick, if you are interested in mounted combat and you want to be able to do more with mounts in D&D, we actually have a product called Fantastical Mounts. It's all about that. We'll put a link in the description and also an article over there having to do with mounts that are over on the Nerdarchy website. So you can check those out for even more information. So let's jump into like some classes and subclasses that are made to be mounted, or do the mounting, I should say.
All right, so first off, I know this is near and dear to your heart because you're currently playing one, the Artificer Battlesmith. Get a companion, and if you go with a small size creature, a small size player character, then you could literally ride your companion because they're size medium.
Yeah, if you're playing a fighter, you can choose the Cavalier that gives you some benefits while you're mounted. This edition actually did a really good job of making a mounted fighter character, in the sense that you get extra stuff if you're mounted, where your abilities work while you're mounted, but they also work if you're not mounted, which is great. The only downside is you don't actually necessarily automatically get a mount. You'd have to go get one and use those abilities with it.
The Paladin, and I guess we kind of throw Bard into here as well with their magical secrets, Find Steed and Find Greater Steed are great spells that give you access to a really awesome mount that you can be able to call forth when needed.
Yeah, and it actually works much better than some other options for having mounts, specifically because it's a spell, which I will get into that in a little more in depth later. We also have the Ranger with the Beastmaster. You can get a medium-sized companion. So if you're small, you can ride it. And also with Tasha's Cauldron and everything, we get, primal companions, which are slightly better than your normal beast companions from the player's handbook. Now, the question is, what kind of companions have you used in your games? What classes or subclasses have you worked with them? What are the problems that you've come up with, and how did you overcome these problems in order to have a mounted character in your game? Share your thoughts, theories, and ideas down in the comments below with the rest of the Nerdarchy community.
While you're down there, don't forget to stop by that section that makes YouTube happy. Click all the things, like, share, subscribe, even attune to that notification bell.
Quick reminder, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos here on the channel. Come on back and see what's new.
All right, so let's dive in and talk about the mounted combat feat.
Yeah, so mounted combatant is a feat that you can take, and if you're thinking of heavily being vested in using a mount, I think it's something you should probably consider taking. All right, so mounted combatant. You are a dangerous foe to face while mounted. While you are mounted and aren't incapacitated, you gain the following benefits. You have advantage on melee attack rolls against unmounted creatures that are smaller than your mount. You can force an attack targeted at your mount to target you instead. If your mount is subject to an effect that allows it to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage. Instead, takes no damage if it succeeds on the saving throw, and only half damage if it fails. So some of those things are really important. Obviously, being able to mitigate damage is super useful. Getting advantage is super awesome, but it's problematic for a lot of the builds we're talking about. But we also I have some thoughts on that. And also, being able to direct attacks away from your mount to you, which you probably have a better armor class, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, have way more hit points, so you can soak the damage easier than your mount can.
Yeah, I think that's the key. That's the killer point, is being able to direct attacks at you and to lessen the damage, with that essentially that evasion quality. Having recently, played some higher end games where the just the damage threshold of area effect attacks, not all of which are going to be dex, can just utterly annihilate, companions and things. It's crazy the things that you can kind of get up to. So when you're talking about this thing that you are building your character on top of, you're gonna want things to make that mount better and increase that survivability. So absolutely, mountain combatant is a kind of a necessity if that's where you're leaning into that mountain combat character.
Yeah, so we've got three subclasses essentially, or three classes with their subclasses that we want to talk about for using mounted combat combos. You can add a fourth with the bard because they get magical secrets and they can take 5 steeds. So anything a paladin can do, they can kind of do. The only real caveat to that, unless you're a College of Lore bard, you have to wait till like 10th level. So, it's very late game. I mean, even as a lore bard, you still have to wait till 6th in order to do it. Anyway, so, and also like magical secrets is a really powerful ability. Using it on 5 steed may not be the way to go with it. And you can never really get the upgraded version either, I don't think. Or if you can, it's not until like 10th level. So I don't know. That's neither here nor there. Let's look at our combos, right? First up, we have the Artificer with Battlesmith.
So the Battlesmith, something that I'm currently playing, and I think Dave is playing one as well in 2 separate games, and it's really great. It's the combo of having the Steel Defender that you can essentially be able to heal for a cantrip is super useful, and you can keep it in the game longer than a lot of things. Its ability to make attacks that are targeted at you or an ally that's within 5 feet of it have disadvantage, as long as it's there with the creature as well. Really useful to try and help the survivability of all within the actual party, not just yourself.
Yeah, so some of the combinations that I've used, because I'm playing a small character, so I actually ride my Steel Defender and use it in combat as a mount. One of the things I do often is I cast Enlarge on the Steel Defender to make it go from medium to large. So now against medium creatures that are not mounted and smaller, you have advantage. And that actually comes up a lot in the game, right? It might vary depending on the type of campaign you're playing in, but I'm in a Curse of Strahd campaign, and most of the things that we fought are medium or smaller. So, I've gotten a lot of use out of that. Otherwise, that ability from mounted combatant is not that great. So that's been a way to make it work. The other thing, the reason that I like this combination, because you can play mounted combatant ping pong, right? Essentially. Ted mentioned the ability that the Artificer gets, I should say the Steel Defender gets, and it works really nice with that mounted combatant ability where when they attack the mount, you can make them attack you instead. My Artificer is pretty tanky. He's got like a 19 or 20 armor class, right? So they attack the mount. I make them attack me instead. And then my mount uses the reaction to deflect the attack. The defender imposes disadvantage on the attack roll of the creature it can see within 5 feet, provided the attack roll against the creatures other than the defender, right? So that works perfectly. So now they have to attack me with the higher armor class. and at disadvantage. So, I like it like that for a fun combo.
Yeah, I agree. My Artificer also has a 19 armor class, and the number of attacks that I've wound up foiling with this cool ability is amazing. And once you couple that with actually riding it and the mountain combatant feat, it forces you to attack. It does it with disadvantage. So a lot of times you are going to turn those things which could destroy or put down your mount winds up turning into an absolute miss. So, disadvantage can be brutal. And we've seen it in our games.
Yeah, and also like the fact that because I'm mounted on my steel defender, it essentially has evasion and only takes half damage from spells that require a dex save or no damage is super helpful as well. So those things just kind of add up. So next, let's take a look at the ranger.
Obviously, we're going to look for the ranger with the beast companion, and we're looking at Tasha's where you can get the beast of the land, or see if you're going with an aquatic campaign.
Yeah, so looking at this right away, both the land and the sea offer up a 1-2 punch combo that you can do. Now, you can't really do it with the air because it's a small creature, and you're not going to be able to ride it. But what you can do. Because the beast of the land gets an ability called charge. If the beast moves at least 20 feet straight toward a target and then hits it with a maul attack on the same turn, the target takes an extra d6 slashing damage, which is nice. If the target is a creature, it must succeed a strength saving throw against your spell save DC or be knocked prone. Right? So you have your beast charge and attack. If it hits and does damage, awesome. If it knocks it prone, even better. Now your attacks are at advantage. But here's the thing: if you're using a beast of the sea, their action, they have something called binding strike. It's a melee weapon attack. Using your spell attack modifier to hit, reaches 5 foot, one target, d6 plus 2 plus your fish's bonus piercing or bludgeoning damage, your choice, and the target is grappled. Escape DC equals your spell save DC. Until the grapple ends, the beast can't use this attack on another target, but that's fine if you're riding your beast in an aquatic setting. It lashes out, it wraps them up, and now they're grappled when you attack them. So it's a great 1-2 punch when using it. Now, I will bring up the downside to using this particular mount, and that is, again, you have to be a small character again. Now, you might already get advantage if those creatures are small, but if they're medium, you're not going to get it from your mounted combatant. But if you can knock them down or grapple them, you can gain advantage that way.
So all of these, incredibly useful, definitely a lot of fun.
So that's just one combo for the ranger. Another one is, I'm calling it no mountain high enough. The biggest problem with having a mount in a lot of the areas you're going to go in is, you got a horse and you come to a cliff. Well, how do you get the horse to the top of the cliff? Well, your beast of the land has a climb speed. This negates so many problems that you're going to face and come up with when you have a mount in the dungeon with you.
In my games, I've had a number of things where climbing becomes an issue, and that is why many mounts wind up being left at the dungeon entrance. The number of horses that have been lost, killed, or what have you, just because the players have had to leave them behind because there's no space for them, makes things interesting. In the current game that I'm running over on our Nerdarchy Live channel, there was a climbing episode where they had to climb up, and the dude's like, yeah, my mount's got this. And he just starts climbing up with these massive claws. Like, I got a climb speed. I'm good.
Yeah. And then the final thing for the ranger that helps a lot with making a mounted combatant type character is the fact that after a long rest, you can choose what your mount actually is. So if you're going someplace totally inhospitable to a mount, you might just turn it into a beast of the air, make it small. And I guess you can't do your cool mounted things, but also it's not a problem. Or, if you're going on an aquatic adventure, well, you can turn it into a sea, a sea creature, and then you actually have a mounted creature for the sea or the land. So you just get a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, that having the ability to alter the form of your mount or your companion, super helpful. Allows you to get through a number of problems and a number of situations.
So last we have the Paladin.
So the Paladin, as we already mentioned, we're looking at the Find Steed spell. It's a second level spell. You summon a spirit that assumes the form of an unusually intelligent, strong, and loyal steed, creating a long-lasting bond with it. We don't need to read the whole thing, but typically you can choose a warhorse, a pony, a camel, an elk, or a mastiff. Sometimes your GM might allow you to choose something else. I know I've seen unicorns and lions and all kinds of things for a paladin mount. So whatever you're choosing, you're getting typically a large creature, so it's going to work for any kind of medium or smaller character.
Yeah, there's a couple important things to point out. One, the spell's instantaneous, so you cast it, it happens. The mount is there until you choose to send it away. So again, this can be useful if you're going someplace that you can't really bring your mount, and you can send it away, and then once you get past that obstacle, you can cast the spell again and get it back. I mean, obviously it's going to take resources, but it's definitely doable. Also, when you summon a mount, it has a 6 intelligence if it doesn't already. That makes it an intelligent creature. There are special rules for using a mount that has an intelligence. I mean, it's at a 6 intelligence, it's almost as smart as the barbarian, right? So it has its own turn. It goes on its own. Where other mounts or other creatures like the Steel Defender goes at the end of your turn. I've never played it that way. I've never played with GMs that do, but by raw, that's what it is. You have more flexibility with the Ranger. It just goes on your turn. In this case, it would just technically have its own initiative. And I don't think there's any problem with allowing it to drop down to your initiative and kind of jockeying that a little bit. It understands a language. So, you're going to get some abilities just from that stuff that you normally wouldn't. It's going to open up some avenues for you. But, also, one of the features of the spell is that any spell that targets you can also target your mount.
So this is going to apply for basically anything that's beneficial. All of your healing spells are going to heal you and it at the same time. So definitely you want those kind of things. But even things like Bless or Aid, incredibly helpful. But I think the direction that Dave is really looking at is when you actually cast your smite spells. So when you cast the spell as your bonus action, and all of a sudden, your weapon is wreathed in burning flames, well, so do the hooves of your mount. So when you charge in, you and the mount deliver your attack, and you both get the smite.
Yeah, it is specific, though. It spells that target you. It's not... It targets only you. So, like, Bless and Aid and things like that wouldn't work. But like you said, Cure Wounds on yourself would heal it. Smite spells would heal it. I think, not that this is a Paladin spell, but Mirrored Image would technically only work on you. But if you had access to it and you did cast it, then it would affect your mount as well. Misty Step, right? You can Misty Step your mount. So there's definitely some cool combos that we're not even thinking about that you would get access to because of the Find Steed spell. It's actually a pretty great spell. Hey, if you enjoyed this video on mounts, maybe you want another one. Let's ride the all-mounted D&D party.
And if you'd like to help support Nerdarchy to keep making videos like this, why not check us out over on Patreon?
As a thank you, you'll receive monthly 5e content for players and DMs alike, a chance to game with us, and more.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.